There is a difference between setting boundaries versus being controlling. And today I really want to talk to you about that. So a boundary is something you set for yourself that you make a decision about how you're going to handle a situation. So when you set a boundary, you're not trying to control another person's behavior. You're making a conscious decision about how you're going to handle yourself in a situation and how you'll support yourself. So here's an example. Like these are the hard ones, right? Because they can sound very similar. But all right, if I'm setting a boundary for myself of like, all right, I'll use a tough person. Like there's always tough people in this world, right? So when I'm going to be in the vicinity of a tough or a difficult person, and I know I'm going to be in the vicinity of them, if I try to tell them what to do, I'm not going to get anywhere because they're a tough person anyway. So how I set boundaries, for example, for myself with a tough person is I might set a boundary around, I will limit how much time I spend with that person. I might set a boundary for myself around, I'm going to decide what I talk to them about and what I don't talk to them about. So like that's boundaries, right? And I'm setting them just for me. I'm not saying you don't get to tell me or talk to me about this, which is being controlling, but I am deciding for myself, here are the topics I'm willing to talk about and here are the topics I'm not willing to talk about, right? And so if that person brings up a topic that I'm not willing to talk about, then I can meander away. I can use myself and go do something else, especially this is like in a party. I'm thinking of like in like a group setting, because hopefully you're not just hanging out with difficult people on a regular basis. There's always that one person at a party that you're like, ugh. But again, so that boundary might be, I just don't want to spend a lot of time with that person, even when I'm at this party. So I'm going to limit my interaction with that person. It's not like the controlling thing would be to be like, you don't get to invite this person to your party, like trying to get somebody else, forcing somebody else to make a decision for your comfort. And that's not fair. Like but first of all, it's not even your party. And secondly, they may not be as difficult for that person to deal with it. We all have a right to decide who we're going to interact with and who we're not going to interact with, right? And so that boundary setting, again, it's about controlling yourself. Here's another space for it, just to give a different example. So say somebody asks for your advice, right? If you are given advice, you still should have a right to decide whether you're going to take that and do something about it or whether you're not. When somebody gives you advice and then they get controlling about the advice, then they get like butt hurt about the fact that you're not listening to, like, why would I give you the advice if you're not even going to listen? It's like, no, like when you offer advice, okay, these are options, but ultimately you have to decide in your life what makes sense for you and how you're going to move forward. And so if a person is getting mad at you or trying to push you around because you're not following their advice, that's controlling behavior. That's a thing they need to work on. And again, that might be a difficult person that going forward you can set some boundaries around. But again, you can't force them to do anything. You can only set boundaries for yourself and how you're going to interact. And so one boundary you might set with that kind of person is, I'm actually not going to ask for advice from them anymore, because when they give advice, it is not free advice. It comes with a cost, right? But that's you setting that boundary. Another way you might set a boundary with that person is, I'm going to decide what I talk to them about and what I don't share with them, because some people give unsolicited advice. In the man world, that's called mansplaining, but I think everybody does a little bit of this unsolicited advice thing, right? And so it may look like, you know what, I'm not going to talk to them about my kids because they always give me unsolicited advice that I'm definitely not willing to follow through with. And even though some of it may be good advice, if they are not giving it freely, with giving you permission to decide what works for you in your life, then that is still probably a space where you need to set a boundary for yourself of, I just don't think this person's a good person to receive advice from. All right, so anyhow, bringing it all back together, boundaries are not about controlling anyone else. They are about deciding how you will handle yourself and support yourself in different situations. And they will impact the people around you, don't get me wrong. Like, you won't get as close to that difficult person as a result of a boundary you set for yourself. But in the end, did you want to? So, if you would like more information, please submit a contact form at my website, therapistinstlouis.com. And for more information like this, please like and subscribe.